So yeah, let's crack on with today. So today we're starting the second of the series of the Have Matt Got News for You, the direct to consumer edition. So really, yeah, thankful that you guys are joining today, and hopefully this will be a valuable session. This is a little run through for the session. We've got a little introduction from myself and Jerome, our guest speaker from PepsiCo, representing the unwasted.nl brand as well. It's a fascinating story how this has grown through lockdown. So we're going to look at this. We're going to look at truly what D2C is, how D2C can connect with the customer, and then really have a PepsiCo kind of deep dive and looking at how to launch a D2C brand successfully during COVID-19 as the backdrop. And then, yeah, some questions from yourselves as well, and some Q&A as well. Cool. So just a little bit about myself. So I'm Josh. I look after our global retail and CPG clients here at Matt. Yeah, and I've looked after PepsiCo for probably about 6 years across Europe, of which Jerome is one of my clients. I'm really thankful for him to be here today. Look after Diageo as well, and other European retailers from Jysk across 28 markets now as well. And yeah, some other big brands in the UK, which some of you might know, like Entertainer, biggest toy store on the high street, and Homebase as well. So yeah, Jerome, do you want to just give a little bit about yourself as an introduction?
Yeah, thanks, Josh, for allowing me to tell something about Unwasted. So my name is Jerome Hesneveld, located in the Netherlands, now currently working 4 years for PepsiCo. Started at Drinkfinity, which was back then the first direct-to-consumer initiative for PepsiCo in Europe, for which we built the direct-to-consumer infrastructure and launched the brand in Europe. And currently I'm general manager of Unwasted, which includes strategy, marketing, and also the operational and commercial piece of Unwasted. And before that, I have been running several web shops in the area of furniture, sanitary products, and home appliances.
Perfect. Thanks, Trey. So yeah, we're just going to kick off today with a real look at kind of what D2C truly is. And this is really interesting because kind of direct to consumer has obviously had a lot of press recently, and lots of brands are starting to go this way, especially when some of their supply chain means has been cut during the kind of pandemic as well. But what in essence really is direct to consumer? So direct to consumer, personally, I wanted to bring it to a personal story and looking at what the industry is stating as well. So this is a UK stat for everyone here, but the D2C market will boom to 13 billion by 2025. Beyond the manufacturing sector, D2C's impact on the wider UK economy could be up to 32.5 billion. So it's not just the direct sales that will attribute to. Obviously, all of the supply chain, the manufacturing, the other types of sectors who are influenced by this, yeah, will also hopefully positively impact over the next 5 years. So this is a huge consideration now for lots of brands, and obviously people wanting to get that share of wallet from the customer as well. But what does direct to consumer truly mean? This is a little picture of my high street, local high street here in St Albans as well. And this is the essence of kind of what direct to consumer is. It's a relationship with a local provider or a person or an industry or a brand where you're having that direct connection. And this is just, yeah, an exact simplification of this is the classic kind of fruit and vegetable where you go and get your local products. And what happens here is that kind of exchange of goods, of discussion, of talk, for instance, and you build up that relationship directly with that provider. And that can mean a few different things. So for ourselves, it could mean helping that by shopping local, you're helping those users directly, you're helping them provide for their children, their requirements as well. You know it's going into their pockets. But also you have that and strike up that rapport with this provider. And then you also sometimes get additional benefits for this. So when I look at this from a personal perspective, this was just on the recent bank holiday weekend, and this is my son here, Samuel. And when we go to that local market, we might get some additional extras for this, like a couple of extra sweet potatoes, a couple of extra bananas, which we haven't paid for, but that's really struck a chord with me. And that means that I have that kind of sense of belonging, sense of loyalty, and maybe come and return back to that brand more frequently, or in this case, the fruit and veg market. So this is really what truly kind of direct to consumer really means. It's kind of connecting on a real personal level, and then obviously having some sense of enjoyment from the products that we receive. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of tee something up at this stage here as well, and ask the guys and everyone on the webinar today, what really makes you buy from a particular brand, or what's the feeling that a brand gives you and makes you want to return and purchase their goods? So just like a one-word answer, what do the brilliant brands kind of convey a message to yourselves that make you go back, whether that be from simple shopping powder, for instance, or simple foodstuffs, for instance? What does those brands resonate with yourselves? If you could just see a few things up on the chat, and then I can show kind of what some industry studies are saying as why consumers really connect with brands on certain levels. Let's have a little look on this chat now. Anyone able to paste some ideas around why they connect with certain brands? Just give you guys 30 seconds just to type in some things into the chat. It'd be good just to hear your feedback. So we've got here kind of family values. Any other things which brand kind of resonates with you and go, okay, that's why I always buy Fairy over Personal? Or is there a difference? Is it a quality of goods? Is it a simple connection? Is it a brand value? There's a few that come out later from Jerome, and hence why we're doing this. So yeah, I thought it'd be a good just starting point as well. Okay, cool. Well, let's move on to the yeah, kind of what the industry study is saying. So yeah, what reasons do people give for their kind of connections? And this is quite a nice little study. Everything that I'm putting up today is also linked below, guys. So you can, once you get the slide deck, you can take those reports. So this is what people feel and give them emotional brand connections. So it feels like brands really care about those users. They're making a positive difference to the world. That could be from a sustainability perspective as well. They get me at a personal level. They understand me as a consumer, and they seem to relate to me. And a lot of this is obviously great branding, great awareness, great marketing. And some of that is what we're going to talk around today as well. But at a kind of a personal level, these are the type of brand values that users kind of afford to when they're speaking to the brands. I really like this kind of slide as well, from how we've kind of seen these type of different ways that it kind of pulls on our maybe our heartstrings, really. So we've got here, like, there's all about the education. It's about nature, nurture, positivity, simplicity. It does a job for me. That's why I go back and get to that brand. It goes maybe to my core values of being like more like fitness led, and that's me. Or it could be veganism, or whoever it is. It's really like these brands are starting to pull on those kind of heartstrings as well. And then what does this do? It elicits an emotional response. So brands get an emotional response, and actually obviously the people who purchase from them have this kind of feeling when they're buying those certain products. So you could be excited. It could be that these are really like compassionate or confidence, or makes you feel good about owning that type of product. And this is what D2C can do, maybe more so than multi-channel retailers, because multi-channel retailers are supporting lots of brands and lots of different mixed messages, whereas direct to consumer, they tend to know exactly where their product is, they know their purpose, and they know their value. And these are the branded emotions that D2C can sometimes win over multi-channel retail. So yeah, we're going to now look a little bit more formally at how D2C can connect to consumers, unlike other multi-channel retailers. And it's not just an e-commerce shop which is just sprung up by the end consumer and everyone flocks to it and then they go and purchase. It's much more than that. So what are we seeing here? So it's all about building lasting consumer relationships. So customers are quite passionate about their favorite products, more so normally than the multi-channel retailer who sells them. I'll give you guys an example. So customers will go and talk to their mates about the new Nike shoes that they've just gone and bought. But they're not going to go and talk about their Foot Locker, or in the UK, Sports Direct, for instance, of where they purchased it. That's just a means to get to the product, where the product is something that we will go and talk about. Okay, so I hope that's a nice little example. And this is that kind of emotional connection I've been talking about, why D2C can capitalize on that kind of human emotion. So this is something that when we're launching D2C, we have to really understand what our kind of core brand values are and messages are to try and resonate with our audience, to make them come direct as well. D2C also understands the process, the manufacture, the items, the journey, the material. That story really can come through in your product marketing and be told to the customer. You guys care about the products that you're selling more so than maybe a multi-channel retailer shed, for instance. They've got lots of different things that they need to support on. So you can actually drive home your kind of core messaging and core values. You see this with stuff like Tony Chocolonely's, for instance, in their marketing. I know that's a great Dutch example for Jerome as well. But these type of brands, they can really kind of play on exactly their underlying feelings around how they're doing this. And you see a lot of this on LinkedIn as well. So conveying this message resonates really strongly to consumers, and they care about it, the history, rather than it's just a product and just a commodity which you can get from anywhere, for instance. And this is where users can become more personal. D2C can be more personal than ever a multi-channel retail shed can be, because they can focus on that kind of single brand or the single experience and get their personalization right for the individual users, because they're not tracking thousands of multi-channel products across their stack. They're looking across their own product range, which should be easier to manage at scale as well. And then you should be able to then, as a result of this, able to execute on tailored journeys, replenishment journeys, these different types of things from single brand focus. So once you understand that customer and have that customer, you really know a lot about me. You know what I'm purchasing, what types of I don't know, microgram or milligram or literage or whatever I'm buying on that particular product. You know if I'm a supersize user, a kind of a snack box user in Jerome's case as well. So we should really be able to execute and tailor our marketing campaigns to make sure it's a single focus. And we see this really well from direct to consumer. Over and above the multi-channel retail shed, who have lots of brand retail messages to try and support, and then would be like saying, okay, well, we've got to support, if we take like a grocery example, we've got to support all of our beverages, our bakery, our fresh fruit and breads. You've got so many different core messages that can sometimes be kind of really mixed to the customer as well. But this building lasting consumer relationships, again, is also driven by the insight as well. So D2C are able to gain 100% of the customer feedback data through the e-commerce transactions, the on-site browsing behavior, for instance, and also get that product feedback directly to the users. And this 100% kind of angle and the insight that can be gleaned from these retailers, the D2C retailers, means that they have that kind of edge really about really understanding why consumers are buying from them, and then how to kind of bring those users back into the funnel again. So yeah, this should mean that you guys can focus on the correct audience for marketing and ensure that the customer can come direct by understanding the insights, understanding what channels are really working well, whether that be social and Instagram and Facebook, kind of bringing those new leads in, whether it be PR and awareness and campaigns, again, getting that brand out there and letting the customer know that they can come direct as well. But this all comes back to the kind of insights. So if you can capture the insights from a web perspective, with your analytics tools, your behavioral tools, really understanding your kind of days between purchase, your repeat frequency for certain individual product flows. And it's not consistent across the whole of your product set as well. It's about getting down to that kind of micro level, understanding your tailored journeys, and then kind of working your marketing comms around that as well. But it's not always rosy, and this is where we wanted to discuss some of the kind of pitfalls of kind of D2C as well. And D2C can fail, and there's been a few kind of spectacular examples. I'm going to call out a couple of them. Like I say, I don't want to focus too much on the kind of the ones that haven't worked, but I think there's a lot of things that you can learn lessons from in some of these kind of failings, and they're actually quite hard to find because they're not always well publicized, because no one always publicizes these kind of the ones that aren't successful. But this is a brand that was called Brandless, which was a kind of a consumer activity within the US market actually, and they had a real kind of point of difference and point to market when they launched, that they had a uniformity on price on all of their goods at this kind of $3 rate. They were telling this story about kind of simple products, stripped back, direct to consumer, where you could go and get these goods. But as soon as they tried to get investment, and they received quite substantial investment, they couldn't scale the business correctly, and they lost their kind of brand ethos. They moved away from their ethical stance in some of their production of their goods. Their price changed. I think it went from like $3 to $9, and it just lost the consumer as well. So when they scaled up, they weren't able to kind of bring those same kind of resonancy of why they started the brand. They couldn't do that at the scale. And yeah, this is obviously where this kind of brand failed as well. There was also this example from kind of Glossier Play, which is a kind of makeup brand as well. And what they did when launching D2C is they also tried to, sorry, they also tried to reinvent the wheel in terms of their product lines. So there's some really successful products. I'll just take some water. So yeah, they had some really successful products in the market, which they were selling through multi-channel retail. But they thought when they went to direct to consumer, they had to launch a whole new line to make it really exciting and something different to stand out. Sorry. Yeah, but what happened here? They had actually kind of excess packaging on their new goods. They triple boxed the goods. It annoyed the customers. It was like, okay, well, why are you doing this for us? They started using non-biodegradable materials, which they hadn't done in some of their other brands. They lost again some of their ethos. And underwhelming response from usual brand fanatics was the kind of final nail in the coffin in Feb 2021. So this is just a couple of examples where, yeah, there's different things that you can learn here about. Don't try and reinvent the wheel. Don't try and do something too new just to try and go direct. It doesn't have to be different, but you just have to go back to your kind of core values. And this seems what's coming through from some of these kind of case studies here as well. So what does that mean now? Why are brands doing this now? This is my kind of coining of the phrase of kind of brands' quest to own their consumers. And we're seeing this a lot now. And obviously PepsiCo and Unwasted are example of this as well. There is that kind of appetite and also the relationship where brands can actually now try and reach their customers directly and kind of keep that relationship to themselves. So yeah, we wanted to kind of tee up here the PepsiCo story in accordance with Matt as well, and kind of push this over to Jerome as well, just to talk a little bit about Unwasted.
Yeah, thanks, Josh, for the great examples and insights on D2C. As you probably all know, PepsiCo typically sells the products via their customers, and it could be Tesco or other supermarket chains or via away-from-home outlets. But direct-to-consumer is relatively new within PepsiCo. And within food and beverages manufacturers, we often face obsolete. So products which tend to become obsolete, and they typically are being offered to our regular customers first, so to supermarkets. If they don't want to take the products, they are being offered to non-food discounters. And if there are still products left, they are being offered to the food bank. And at the last resort, products are being destroyed. That means incineration, or cattle food is made out of it, or pig food. That is, of course, a pity, and you don't want to have that happening. So that's how Unwasted was born. And what we typically do, and we operate like a typical web shop. We sell two types of boxes, so mixed boxes and snack boxes, to the end consumer. So a consumer can go to unwasted.nl, buy one of the boxes, and it's being shipped to their home address for free. So it typically serves as a typical web shop. If you can go to the next slide, Josh. There are three key reasons for the consumer to buy the boxes based on our research and conversations we have with our consumers and customers. So the first one is avoiding food waste, and that really resonates to the reasons for consumers to buy D2C, which Josh indicated earlier on. And then the second thing is, what consumers really appreciate is the surprise element of the boxes. We don't explain or we don't highlight what kind of products are in the boxes. So every time a consumer receives the box, it's a surprise for them, and they are excited to see what kind of products are in the boxes. So they are able to test new products which they typically wouldn't have bought in the supermarket, which is also attractive for PepsiCo to sample and to make sure that consumers are trying new products or trying different products. And the last one is the discount we offer. So if you take a look at the regular price, it's 22 euros, and we currently are selling the boxes for 15 euros, including free shipping. So that's a significant discount. But not the most important reason. We found out that particularly food waste and the surprise element is important, and particularly the sustainability angle and the eco consciousness element is very important for our consumers. You can go to the next slide. So talking about the young history of Unwasted, and it's just 2 years old, 1.5 actually, and it started as an idea in an internal innovation contest where my colleagues and PepsiCo employees were able to submit the ideas on an online platform. And back then it was the party booster box. So the idea was to offer a party box with different types of our products for consumers, which would have a party in the weekend. Given the current situation, you can imagine, but back then it was still very normal to have parties in the weekend. And it was pivoted towards Unwasted because we saw an opportunity to combine our obsoletes with such a direct-to-consumer box, and it was tested 2 years ago during the summer by a multifunctional SLAM team, and it proved to be a big success. And then a decision was made to scale Unwasted, which led into the relaunch of Unwasted last year. And we built it in such a way that it could be scalable, not only in the Netherlands but also in other countries. So we first started with a pre-launch for our newsletter subscribers, our subscribers which are being managed by MAP. And then a week later, we sent out a press release, which got a lot of nationwide media coverage, which gave us a perfect kickstart for the rest of the year. And we took 2020 as a year to learn and to optimize the product in order to make it better and meet all the consumer needs. This year we are scaling up in the Netherlands, but we are also looking into expanding into other countries and team up with other food and beverages manufacturers to allow them to participate in the Unwasted box. You can go to the next slide. If you look at marketing and acquisition, the most important element of Unwasted is our core consumer base. We see a lot of consumers are rebuying the boxes, and that is very important, particularly for direct to consumer and particularly for food and beverages, because the repeat purchase is crucial to make it a sustainable success. And we do that via posts on social media, but also via the newsletter. So every few weeks we're sending out a newsletter, and the topics are diverse. So it's at one hand our commercial messages, for example, when we introduce a new type of box, or when the boxes are back in stock, because that's also an element of selling obsoletes. Often we don't have boxes in stock, so once they are back in stock, we send a newsletter to our audience, and we do that via MAP. So last year we sold 17,000 boxes, and we have a quite big follower base now, which is very engaged. So if you take a look at our social media and you put on the translate button, you can see that we have a lot of consumers being really engaged on social media, for example, sharing the content of the boxes and making pictures of that and sharing that with fellow consumers. You can go to the next slide. And that's also a key point for a successful D2C launch, and that needs to be there needs to be a proposition which fulfills a consumer need. And in our case, that is a combination of sustainability, a surprise element, and a discount. But I think it's crucial to make it successful, and particularly within food and beverages, we see that most of the products are being sold as part of a larger basket in the supermarket. So you need to have a very strong proposition which sort of engage consumers and lure consumers out of that regular shopping cycle, and make sure that they buy the products at a separate web shop, in this case being Unwasted. And as I highlighted before, test and learn is really important. So test small before scaling up and talk to consumers, understand what is important for them, so you can improve the proposition. And once it is sort of out and it's improved, then you can scale up, and you see that that is probably way more effective than scaling up and then finding out that there are some elements in the proposition which are suboptimal. And then the last one is to build a sustainable and a scalable ecosystem. So in terms of tech, there are a lot of tools available and a lot of APIs, so you can connect it with each other. In our case, we are using Shopify, and we connect that with MAP, which allows us to scale it up. And also in terms of logistics, which can be for a fast-moving consumer player, can be a challenge, because our operations is in bulk, sending products in bulk to, for example, supermarkets. D2C is low scale, and the volumes are lower, particularly at the beginning. So you need to think about an ecosystem which is scalable for the longer run. And then if you look at the mistakes and you want to which you want to avoid making, and that is I think the most important one, it's also being connected to the proposition, is that you assume what consumers want. When we started Unwasted, we thought, particularly in the Dutch market where people are very price sensitive, that we thought that consumers thought that the discount element was most important, which proved not to be the case. So talking to your consumers, do some research, get insights to understand what is most important for your consumers. And then to the second one is D2C being the holy grail. So last year, particularly driven by COVID, we see that e-commerce is booming, and a lot of businesses want to jump on this trend, and and as part of that solution, D2C is often being mentioned. And for me, D2C is a channel, and D2C could be a solution, but it starts with the consumer and starts with a proposition. And D2C could be one of the channels. It could also be marketplaces, but it doesn't have to be the key channel. So it isn't the holy grail. It could be a solution, and it can work very well, but it shouldn't be the start. And then the last mistakes you don't want to make is sticking to the business case and planning phase. And that's something we particularly see at the larger players and multinationals like PepsiCo, is that a lot of businesses start talking and fine-tuning the business case, but at a certain moment it's really important to get your boots on the ground and to have an entrepreneurial mindset and to start doing it. And once you start doing it and start selling and start talking to your consumers, you get way more insights, and it allows you to fine-tune the proposition. And that comes back to the early example I made on a minimum viable product and testing. It's really important to, at a certain moment, stop talking and start doing, and start growing the business and start growing direct to consumer.
Perfect, thank you, Jerome. We're going to come back to Jerome a little bit later on with some questions and things as well. So, but yeah, hopefully you can hear that from a kind of brand who has taken that leap. And as Jerome mentioned, that timescale from the PepsiCo side is relatively short. If you can imagine such a big moving feast as PepsiCo, with all of their brands and all of their market support. So they really saw the kind of opportunities. They have fast-tracked these type of ideas. And as we've seen, we have scaled and kind of learned together, and bringing those customer insights back from the customer feedback has allowed them to kind of adapt their proposition, and then again are now bringing in those hopefully other markets as well, and also other kind of suppliers and different kind of proposition from a product as well, just to keep that kind of freshness to the consumer. But yeah, I just wanted to touch on a few kind of latest Forrester and MAP findings which really support this as well, and give you some other takeaways that you can come after this webinar as well. So really pleased to announce that kind of MAP have just gone live with a big Forrester study that's just happened, just released actually on, I think it was Tuesday this week. There's a webinar taking place next week as well, which I'll put a link through to in the minute. But these are the really latest stats from Forrester, obviously the industry lead on kind of reporting and benchmarking. And what we saw here from the Forrester study, for especially D2C and CPG, is that insight is really taking the lead. And it's saying that 58% of D2Cs and CPG marketplaces are looking to implement some form of customer analytics in the next 12 months. This isn't just kind of, okay, we've got a pixel on the website and it's pulling into our Google Analytics, for instance, but it's meaning truly looking at individual customer analytics around kind of propensities, churn analysis, days between purchase, customer cohorts, these type of things. These are really key things that businesses need to understand, those kind of data points, and those that can obviously can then hopefully like adapt their marketing and kind of work out when they should be doing things, because like I said, the journeys that users are on, even for your individual product sets on your D2C website, are very, very different, and so we have to adapt our marketing accordingly as well. And yeah, what we saw in this report as well is that D2C and CPG data is paramount. So the #1 challenge for providing the best kind of customer experience is normally that lack of customer insights. So when scaling up your D2C brand, think about collecting customer insights and what tools and what tech you have there, but then also what resource you have to be able to kind of use that insight. It's pointless having the tech and no one to look at it as well. So it is that balance between, yeah, getting those kind of insights available and surface, so you don't have to spend 3 days doing data mining to try and find out what you've been asked for, and by that time you've missed the boat on the angle or whatever you wanted to bring out, but actually kind of bringing that to the surface and then utilizing those kind of customer insights. And then this is a really interesting part of the study, which is for D2C and CPG, what tech investments have contributed the most improvements. And again, this came from Forrester, independent body. And we can see here that customer analytics, customer data management, marketing automation, marketing performance, experience delivery. These are the key things which D2C and CPG are saying at this point. And we feel that MAP Cloud, obviously insight-led customer engagement, that's our strapline. Just so happens, obviously, a lot of these core things are kind of things that we feel really strongly about, and yeah, have the tools and skill sets to help manage as well. Yeah, so just a couple of things that I thought would be useful. I'll leave it in here, but there's a Forrester report download. I'm sure some of our teams might be able to put those links in to the chat as well. And then next week we have our VP of Global Strategy presenting yeah, the Forrester webinar as well, in accordance with Forrester, regarding kind of the do's and don'ts, the presentation of all of the study as well. So yeah, definitely one to worth attending if you guys have time as well. So yeah, just some summary and some key takeaways. I know we've had about 30 minutes today, so hopefully a nice succinct session, and we do a few bits of Q&A after as well. But some key takeaways from D2C as we see it is, don't just recreate a traditional e-commerce website and think it will just work. So you really have to have some form of emotional angle or some form of attachment to the customer based upon your skill set and needs. What is the purpose, and why would a customer come to you guys directly over going down to a multi-channel retailer, for instance, if we're looking at more FMCG, for instance. So yeah, don't just think because we built the best website in the world that everyone will just come and visit. You have to think about how you bring people into that journey. And that is kind of your take on your go-to-market. So as Jerome mentioned, theirs was on their kind of eco-consciousness. They had 3 kind of core values that they brought there, that surprise element, and those removing those obsoletes from the business. So that was a business challenge internally, and then this was solved actually, and D2C seemed to be the right answer. And you can see how that's kind of grown with the response from the customers as well. Try and capture insights at every stage of the journey. And this is great for D2C because you are owning that whole supply chain, from supply to actual kind of fulfillment. Whereas prior, this would have been through the multi-channel retail, and typically those analytics back out of those multi-channel retailers were very hard to come by. And there'd be always holes in the journey. You may have done a great bit of kind of marketing to your base, but then had to push them to store, and you wouldn't get all of that feedback data. You wouldn't know how many users had gone on from that journey to go and purchase. But with digital and with these kind of supply chain needs that you have now, you can capture everything at every point, from behavioral analytics right through to conversion analytics, and then also the kind of marketing activity as well. Yeah, so use these insights as well to on purchase events, behaviors, implement these into hopefully like a customer data platform to try and form the best marketing journeys. And this has worked really well for PepsiCo on their D2C launches as well. And as Jerome mentioned, find the right technology partners that you can scale with. Obviously we are a tech vendor, but you can see with the kind of the approach that a lot of users are going through on the Shopify means as well, it's a scalable platform that charges and licenses happens upon volume of consumption. So it's something that you can kind of grow with as well. It doesn't have to be Shopify, but there are kind of those kind of headless commerce ones that you can scale with and do this at relatively cheap cost, rather than having a full-blown design and built bespoke website that you are already have a lot of sunk costs before you even sell your first package direct to consumer as well. Cool. And then I thought it's only right just to put one kind of final slide on MAP and who we are for those users who are kind of new to us as well. But what MAP are all about is about this kind of enhancing this customer experience, and where we had lots of siloed data previously from e-commerce, earned media through like Facebook, display advertising, paid media and analytics. MAP are really about bringing all of that together into a customer data platform, breaking down those kind of siloed walls where you can do segmentation, personalization, customer data all in one place. So that's where we see ourselves, and we're really thankful to be working with great brands, even such as PepsiCo, as well, to help them scale across ESSA, which is the Europe, Sub-Saharan Africa region, and across lots of their markets, including their premium brands like Lay's and Walker's and Pepsi. And it's great to even be helping on this kind of D2C journey on these new initiatives. So yeah, we've got the full kind of spectrum for PepsiCo as well. So yeah, it's just over to me to ask you guys if you'd like to pose any questions. Thank you guys for your time as well. And yeah, I'll stop sharing the screen, and then hopefully you guys can see us back as well.
Yeah, and maybe start with the first question, which came in via the forum. So we had a question on acquisition strategy and marketing and how we did that. So we started with testing. So Facebook advertising, Instagram advertising, and Google search, and we optimize the campaigns towards the best performing channels and best performing audiences. And that's the good thing of direct to consumer. You can measure everything. So at the end, we found out that Facebook and Instagram were working very well for us. So that's what we're currently still doing, and we really try to re-engage the customer via newsletters and also via organic posts on Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah, perfect. And I think in terms of the launch itself, Jerome, like obviously you mentioned about the PR story and getting that name out there originally. Again, I guess that's the hardest part for a lot of brands, and PepsiCo have a nice kind of pretty PR machine that you guys can go out to and leverage off the back of. But how did you find that initial tipping point to bring that initial awareness to the customer? What was your kind of thoughts around that and how that really worked? Was it just that kind of awareness and that press release just created a little bit of a buzz in a community straight away for you guys? Or I guess that's the hardest part for that initial launch phase as well.
Yeah, and particularly sending out a press release for a new initiative like Unwasted and a known brand like Unwasted is, even for PepsiCo, it's pretty hard. And the amount of coverage we got was way above expectation. So it was national mainstream media, but also professional press, which gave us a kickstart. But we also, during the summer of 2019, we also tested via Too Good To Go, which is an anti-food waste app, typically used by bakeries and restaurants, but now also being leveraged by the larger grocery chains. And back then we were one of the first manufacturers to leverage that app, and that gave us also quite a lot of coverage. In the Netherlands, 1 million users are using Too Good To Go on a total population of 60 million. That's quite a lot. So that also gave us quite some media attention, and also the engagement on social media, consumers tagging each other in the comments, and also sharing a lot of images of the contents of the boxes. So all that together worked very well. So we were lucky to have that kind of snowball effect, particularly at the beginning of the relaunch.
And there's one on the chat just regarding kind of free postage and packing. Again, obviously there comes a cost to the business for doing that, but yeah, just your views and research about the free postage and packaging and why you went with that proposition for Unwasted. Is it just something that you were able to do within margins, or again, was there a particular reason behind that free postage and packing?
Yeah, so what we try to do is we try to leverage as much as the PepsiCo system as we can from a logistical perspective. And for us, we are a small brand, so we don't have that much budget. So we try to operate from an entrepreneurial mindset, and also to make it as cost effective as possible. So that's also the reason for doing so.
Okay, cool. And was it correct that you started off where users would actually come to your kind of supply chain and go and fetch the boxes themselves and kind of do this type of stuff? It was quite a real kind of entrepreneurial setup at the start.
Exactly, and that's also because we as PepsiCo don't have that much physical location. So we have our plants as a physical location and our headquarters. Too Good To Go only works with physical pickup points. So we at the beginning, during the test pilot, we used the headquarters in the Netherlands as a pickup location, and a lot of consumers were visiting our office to pick up the boxes. And at a certain moment, we had so many consumers that we needed to find other ways to sell the product, and that's how the webshop was born. So, and that's now our key channel to sell the boxes.
Great. No, it's amazing how that kind of evolution has come about. And yeah, pre-COVID days, everyone must add about not congregating in one office in one place as well. Another question that's just come through is about how you grab the management attention and win over the reluctant stakeholders. I guess that's a real key one, just to get that buy-in from the powers that be about releasing that budget in the first place and creating that, I guess.
No, that's a very important one, and that's also the element where a lot of direct-to-consumer initiatives within larger companies like PepsiCo are stranding or putting on hold. Is that the top management doesn't have the attention for direct-to-consumer. I think that has been changed over the last year because direct-to-consumer is a very hot topic. But the idea of Unwasted was born in 2019, and Drinkfinity was also launched before that. I think PepsiCo is quite ahead in the direct-to-consumer business. For example, SodaStream, which is also a PepsiCo business, also has a direct-to-consumer element in there. We have Gatorade selling direct-to-consumer in the US, so it is urgent. We were lucky in the Benelux business unit that the management team is quite entrepreneurial and is very fond of testing smaller initiatives. And at the moment, and I think that's also the minimum viable product way of thinking. At the moment, you need to start doing it in a small scale, and once you get traction, you see that the top management is increasingly fond of it and increasingly involved, and that is something which is good. And in our case, it's a combination between sustainability and direct to consumer. And we see that I even got a message forwarded from the global CEO of PepsiCo, which is really appreciative on Unwasted. So we got that covered, and particularly the last year, there was also direct to consumer is a hot topic within our business. Looking at other business, and one advice I can take is, don't only look at the proposition itself and where you should do it, but it's also that insights element, which is very important to go direct to consumer. We get so much more data from our consumers because we handle the transaction, and we are able to do performance marketing, which we can also deploy to our larger business. So we are sort of a sandbox for marketing, but also for tech. I always indicate to our tech team and to our PepsiCo Labs team, which is scouting small businesses and small tech, that they can use Unwasted as a testing ground. So I think it's testing, but it's also insights, which is one of the key elements to do so. And at the end, I always indicate to look at other industries. For example, fashion is way more advanced in direct to consumer, so it's a broader trend across multiple industries, and it's the future. So you better join this trend instead of joining late, and get the learnings and the ecosystem as quickly as you can, instead of joining the party relatively late.
Perfect. I think that's a great message to end on there. So really appreciate your time, Jerome, your candidness and your open approach. It's been great working with you over these years, and from Drinkfinity right through to Unwasted, I'm sure we'll be doing lots more together as well going forwards. One's just come in on the PR response, because the eco aspect. Go on, we'll squeeze it in just because Jerome's here and he's giving up his full hour today. So
yeah, maybe one comment on this one is yes, there was a key thing. So we see that the mainstream media really liked the eco aspect of Unwasted, and particularly the professional press was interested in the direct to consumer element. So yeah, the eco element was paramount for creating such a wide buzz.
Perfect. Great. All right. Well, that was a nice one just to squeeze in towards the end. So yeah, again, Jerome, thanks very much for your participation today. And yeah, hope everyone on the session has enjoyed it. As we mentioned, the slides will be available after for you guys to get any stats and download those white papers as well. And yeah, webinar next time on Forrester is coming out. And yeah, hopefully everyone goes, and if you can venture and visit unwasted.nl, look at the product set as well. If you've got friends and colleagues in the Benelux region, then please do share it on LinkedIn, on your socials. Let's get some more boxes sold for these guys as well. And yeah, I'm sure they'll have that surprise element at the same time, and love what they're receiving. So yeah, why don't you send a box to one of your mates in Amsterdam, and yeah, everyone's happy.
Thank you, Josh.
Well, thanks everyone. Have a great day, and yeah, we'll speak soon.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.